workshop. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We're going to have presentations regarding our FY22 mid-year budget. Can we have someone come forward that's going to provide that presentation?
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners, and Henry County community. I would like to start by talking about our FY22 proposed mid-year budget adjustment. So first, let's talk about the process and the purpose. So the mid-year budget process is done annually, and it's whereby we do a current analysis of the current fiscal year budget to determine if there are any required adjustments based on updated revenue and expense projections. The process. This is a review done by finance of county revenues and expenses halfway through the fiscal year to determine if there are any required budgetary adjustments. So these would be any items that are over and above our $190 million fiscal year budget. The purpose is to determine if any budgetary adjustments are needed for updated revenue assumptions, for any known additional commitments such as new contracts or services, or any additional needs of the county. Again, these are things that would be over and above our current fiscal year budget. So once we have an approved mid-year amendment, that then becomes our revised budget, and that's our new financial measurement tool for the remainder of the fiscal year. Before the meeting, you guys were provided with a packet where all of the detailed requests were provided. So I will just go through the major drivers for each category. But if you could please direct your attention to the executive summary shown on the screen. You'll notice that our projected FY22 general fund revenue excess is projected to be $9 million. And that's primarily due to higher collections of lost and property tax revenue. Next, if you'll draw your attention to lines 3 through 5, those are our known countywide pending obligations. So the first item is a proposed pension change increase for public safety. And this is where we will be eliminating the early retirement pension penalty. The cost of that is $646,000. The next item would be a pension contribution update. So this would take us from the required contribution to the recommended contribution. The cost of that is $625,000. Next, we would like to take this time to set aside dollars for our capital improvement projects. So these would be items or projects that have already been identified on our capital improvement list, and so that's about $2.4 million that we would like to set aside now. Now that we've addressed the known countywide obligations, we would now like to take a look at our departmental requests, and these will be items that the departments would need in order to meet their departmental goals and objectives for the rest of the year. And again, these will be items that will be above and beyond their originally approved budget for FY22. So looking at the chart on the screen, the requests are divided into two different categories, personnel and operational. So we'll start with the personnel request. And again, I won't take you line by line because you guys have the detail, but we will talk about the major drivers for each category. So the first category under personnel would be for the judicial system. And again, this is primarily to the cost to upgrade one part-time position to a full-time position. And that's about $25,000. The next major item would be public safety. Here, there are two major drivers. So the first will be under the fire department. Back in 2018, 27 employees were hired under a SAFER grant that ran for 3 years. When the fourth year came around, the county was expected to pick up the cost for these employees. The grant has now expired, so the cost of taking on those expenses into the general fund is $2 million. The next item of note here is for the police department. Based on a staffing study of officers to the current population of Henry County, It determined that there's a need for 17 new officers as well as 5 supervisory positions. The cost of bringing those new positions on is about $1.1 million. So that brings you to your overall public safety personnel total of 3.1. Next, we'll take a look at general government, and this is primarily to add a new position in our tech services department, and that's estimated at about $42,000. So of all the requests that I just listed, our overall personnel request for mid-year is about $3.2 million. Next, we'll take a look at our operational request. Again, I won't talk about every line, it'll just be the major drivers. So under Public Works, we have a request of about $190,000, and that is for sidewalk and guardrail repairs. Under the Judicial System, there is a proposed request of $93,000, and that's primarily for additional office space for the district attorney, as well as updated estimates for equipment related to new employees being added for the 4th judgeship. Next, we'll take a look at public safety. As I mentioned earlier, they are trying to add 17 new officers, so there are equipment costs associated with adding those officers, as well as other ancillary costs, such as the background checks and medical checks. So that estimated cost is about $430,000. We also have additional requests from the fire department of about $235,000 under public safety, and that is for additional gasoline dollars needed for their increased cost and call volume, as well as increased administrative costs associated with ambulance billing. Their overall request is $235,000. Next, we'll take a look at general government. So the main drivers under general government would primarily be coming from our facilities maintenance department of $172,000. The request here is being driven by increased material costs. There are a lot of projects that they have going on which material costs have increased, so we need to try to cover those. We also have $50,000 for our website design for communications, as well as contract costs for our vehicle cameras that have been placed in county vehicles. So our overall public general government request is $326,000. And our final departmental request is under other financing uses, and that is a transfer from the general fund to the NSP3 fund of about $855,000, and that is to cover the general contractor costs. This is a grant-funded program, and their revenue is not anticipated. We don't expect enough revenue to come in to cover these costs, so therefore there needs to be a transfer from the general fund. That brings the overall operational request to $2.2 million. And once you combine personnel and operational, you have $5.4 million of departmental requests at the mid-year. So if all of these items are approved, that would then take our budget from $189.6 million to $198.6 million. And just so you can see a graphical representation of how the departments fall out regarding the requests, you'll notice that public safety makes up about 71% of the overall request, followed by other financing uses of 16%, general government at 7%, public works at 4%, and judicial system at 2%. That concludes my presentation. Do you guys have any questions?
Thank you. I'd like to open it up for any questions or comments from our board. Commissioner Clemens.
You don't have to give this to me now, but I would like to see line item 42, what that is, the clear government expenses, whatever that is, professional contract service on line 42, and line 63, I wasn't clear on. Samsara annual fee, what is that? Those two.
So line 42, Commissioner?
42, 63, and 66.
Okay, so I can give you copies of the invoices if you like, but I can just give you a brief explanation if that will suffice at this point.
No, because we're not voting on it tonight, I just need that information. And then the website design and maintenance fees, that's an increase of $50,000, number 61?
No, this is the cost to perform the website design. This is their estimated cost.
Okay, that's 50. So, Sherry, I don't know if that was up under the threshold or was that bidded out?
No, ma'am. So none of the items that's listed, that 50,000, will be bidded out. They're just saying that they believe that that's what the cost would be. So it
Okay.
has not been bidded out yet. So if it comes in above, then we'll bring it back to the board.
Okay.
And Commissioner Clemens, if I may, on that item for risk management, the Samsara, that is actually a contract that we already have in place. We currently have video cameras in a lot of our, I'm going to say, the vehicles that are recurring accident vehicles, so that we can watch the behavior of our drivers, and it gives us all the warnings and things of that nature. So that is already a contract that exists, but as we add additional vehicles, the cost goes up. So that's what that's for.
Okay.
Commissioner Clemens, did you have any other questions?
So all of these line items are additional funds needed in these areas, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. They're not new contracts at all.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Commissioner Wilson, I saw you had your hand up as
Yes,
well.
ma'am. Go back to the slide before this one, please. So when it says on number 3, pension change, is that a one-time?
Yes, this is the cost we're estimating to eliminate the early returement.
Okay, it's not going to be reoccurring?
No, it shouldn't
Okay.
be.
So could you break down the reoccurring and the one-time expense from the $9 million? I see several personnel changes and for the judicial and public safety, but I know
So
them are going to be reoccurring. But what out of all that 9 is going to be just one-time expense?
So, to respond to that, everything that we have on here would be recurring cost.
All of that?
Yes, except for lines 3 through 5.
Okay, so, okay.
The departmental request would be recurring expenses.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any additional questions? Yes, Commissioner Thomas.
I do have some questions, but it takes a few moments to go through all these items that she read off. Then we didn't get this in advance to look at it. And I'm also looking at our agenda software that we use, the electronic versions. It was not attached. Are you planning to attach it to that?
I thought this was provided earlier, so I will have to follow up with Stephanie on that.
When was this was sent out? Stephanie, right, earlier?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm on the agenda detailed software that we normally use, the package that we bought, because that's what I use. It's not attached here, so that's the reason why I asked. I'm not sure when it went out then, but let me ask a couple of questions. Let me get it. Now, item number 2 on the public works, have you identified what those repairs will be? Is there a certain area that we're doing these repairs in? On the public works number 2, have you identified that?
So we would need to get a detailed list from the DOT department, and we can provide that to you.
So we don't know where it is, we just know they need additional money for it.
Well, they provided a list, but I don't have that with me right now to share with you.
Item number 9, has it been identified where we'll be able to get the rental space for the district attorney?
I believe they currently have identified a location, the specific address of the location. I don't know. Hutch, you might have more information on that. Mr. Smith just said they have identified a location and they are working on a lease agreement for the location. So this is the estimated cost of renting that space.
That cost came from them, I'm going to assume, and that will be enough for that space?
Yes, this is what the preliminary cost estimates are, $68,000 for the remainder of the fiscal year.
Item number 35, under 35, the coroner's totals, where he has the overtime, the educational training, general supplies and materials. What was his budget that he has to now get all these additional things?
So those items are actually under our EMA department. And I believe a lot of things were being covered by E911, and now that we have, you know, separate directors, we're trying to split it out and put the costs where they really should be. So this is them trying to estimate what their needs will be for the remainder of the year.
And could some of this cost increase be due to COVID and the maybe increase in?
That is correct, Chair. And the other item is, and what Renita has spoken to, is a lot of the charges that were being charged to
E911 really were EMA expenses. And so they've gone in, reconciled those accounts, and that's why you're seeing a separation of the EMA, or at least the increases with EMA. Those staff members are working well beyond their normal 40-hour weeks, just setting up all of the COVID testing sites and all of the other activities that they're participating in.
So if that's so, can we not use some of those fundings that are available for COVID to cover those costs?
We can, Commissioner, but what we want to do is, we know that it's going to be reoccurring costs. It's even beyond COVID. Like, for example, last weekend when we had the threat of inclement weather, we had staff members that operated our emergency operations center starting at 4 o'clock in the morning. And so they were here working, coordinating with the National Weather Service. And so while some expenses can be charged to the COVID, there are other instances where they can't, where they're offering CERT training to individuals after hours and things of that nature.
Well, I'm looking for opportunities to keep our budget as close to its projected. So when we can find opportunities to shift those costs is what I'm looking at. And if it's something related to COVID, then it should be shifted to those dollars. And that's what I'm hoping that will happen. Item number 56, 57, and 58. 57 and 58. Expected overtime at $20,000.
Yes.
Is that what we're running now? Is the trend?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. This is based on our actuals, our previous actuals, and we're trending that out to the rest of the fiscal year.
And Commissioner
Then we
Thomas,
have
that
another
is
20, I'm sorry.
that is also like when the commissioners have events that are not during the normal work hour from Monday through Friday, and they're coming out on Saturday or Sunday doing setups, that's where that cost comes in. And so if it's not something that Hutch could plan for, when we set the budget, he has to go back in and adjust it at mid-year, and so that's what that is.
And where it has dues and fees, another $26,000, what dues and fees are we paying for that?
Those are for stormwater fees, so whenever we are building. They're for stormwater fees. So whenever we build a project, we still have to pay fees and permitting fees, stormwater fees, and things of that nature. And so that's what that's for. So as we add additional.
So the county is paying the county stormwater fees?
We do pay, and but keep in mind, all of our projects aren't in the county. So if it's the city, then we'll pay the respective city.
Okay, well, as long as it's coming back around. That's all I see for the moment. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, hearing none, thank you so very much for the presentation. Again,
If
you tell the board what the next steps are?
Yes.
Because this is just a workshop meeting, so what we'll be expecting from the board.
Okay.
So we will be bringing this back for our full board vote during the first meeting in February. And at that time, based on whatever you guys approve, then we will then amend our budget, and that will become our new revised budget for FY22.
Okay. So what I would like to request of the commissioners of this board is that if you have any additional questions, concerns, need any additional explanations, please reach out to our finance department so that they can answer any questions or concerns that you all may have. So when this does come back before the board, we're able to take some type of action on it. Thank you so much for the Commissioner Clemens.
I'm gonna request this now so that it can be on record.
Okay.
With this documentation that you presented to us, every line item needs to be broken down. So for instance, number 1, if it says DOT repairs and maintenance, 40,000, be specific about what that 40,000, if it's general, whatever it is, have that, clerk or superior, whatever it is, small equipment, $16,000, what is that for? What are we buying? So very specific breakdown of each item up under that. Because if we put a number out there of 16,000, what is 16,000 for? If there's something specific that they need, then we just need to state that and not have these large numbers.
And I think Commissioner Thomas had mentioned also with regards to, I think it was under DOT or facilities about whoever's going to be doing the sidewalks, guardrails, identify where those locations are.
Okay.
On our software system that I have taken the time to learn, I would like to see them attach the documents there under agenda something, Stephanie, if you will, please. Attach them into the software. You've got me acclimated to using it, and I will continue to do so. And so I did look for it there, but I do want to say that, Stephanie, I went back and looked. You did send it out on the 12th in emails, and I failed to see it in the emails, but I looked in the agendas and I didn't see it, okay? Thank you.
All right, great. If there's no other comments or questions, then we will adjourn. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.